Imagine waking up tomorrow with no alarm, no school schedule, no work notifications, no emails, no traffic, no deadlines waiting for you before breakfast. You walk outside, look at the sun, and realize something strange. Nobody is telling you what time it is. For most of human history, people didn't live by clocks. They didn't have to be somewhere at 8 o'clock. They didn't have meetings at 2:30. They didn't receive a notification telling them that they had 3 unread messages. And yet, somehow, modern humans constantly feel like they don't have enough time. We have washing machines, cars, refrigerators, computers, smartphones, and machines that can perform tasks that once took hours. So why does life feel so rushed? And here's the strange part. Your ancestors may have had more control over their time than you do. But that doesn't mean their lives were easy. Far from it. They faced hunger, disease, injuries, predators, extreme weather, and 1,000 other problems that we rarely have to worry about today. So how could people who had fewer technologies sometimes experience less pressure from the clock? To understand that, we have to go back before clocks ruled our lives. For most of human history, people organized their lives around something very different from minutes and seconds. They followed the environment. The sun came up. People woke up. Animals moved. People hunted. Plants grew. People gathered food. The seasons changed. People prepared for winter. Time existed, of course. But it wasn't divided into tiny pieces that had to be constantly optimized. Nobody was thinking, that task took me 17 minutes instead of 15. There was no stopwatch. There was no productivity app. And there was no concept of being late in the modern sense. If you lived in a small prehistoric community, your day was probably structured around activities rather than exact times. You didn't necessarily say, we will meet at 3:15. You might simply say, we'll meet when the sun is low. That sounds incredibly inefficient to us. But it also reveals something important. Time was something you experienced, not something you constantly measured. Before agriculture and cities, most humans lived as hunter-gatherers. They moved through landscapes searching for food, water, shelter, and useful materials. And here's where the popular image gets complicated. You may have heard that hunter-gatherers only worked a few hours a day and spent the rest of their lives relaxing. That's too simplistic. Their lives involved many kinds of work. Finding food required knowledge. Processing plants took time. Preparing meat took time. Making tools took time. Taking care of children took time. Building shelters took time. Moving between locations took time. And hunting could be unpredictable. Sometimes you could spend hours searching for an animal and come back with nothing. Other days, food might be abundant. So their lives weren't a permanent vacation. But there was an important difference. Their work was often directly connected to immediate needs. Find food. Prepare food. Build shelter. Repair tools. Care for children. Rest. Socialize. Sleep. There were fewer layers of artificial scheduling separating people from the reason they were working. Modern life is different. You might spend 8 or 10 hours working, not because you immediately need to produce food or build shelter, but because you are participating in an enormous economic system. Your work might help create a product that travels across several countries before reaching someone you've never met. Your payment arrives electronically. Your food arrives from a supermarket. Your electricity comes through a massive infrastructure system. Your clothes may have been manufactured thousands of miles away. Modern humans are connected to an extraordinary network. And that network gives us incredible comfort. But it also creates something our ancestors didn't experience in the same way. Constant time coordination. Then humans started farming. At first glance, agriculture seems like it should have made life easier. Instead of constantly searching for food, people could grow it in one place. But farming introduced a completely different relationship with time. Plants don't care if you're tired. Crops have seasons. Seeds must be planted. Fields must be maintained. Harvests must happen at the right moment. Food has to be stored. Animals have to be managed. And suddenly, the calendar became incredibly important. You couldn't simply decide that today wasn't a good day to harvest. The crops wouldn't wait. Agriculture created schedules tied to seasons, weather, labor, and survival. And then something even more important happened. People began living in larger settlements. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. And once thousands of people lived together, coordinating time became increasingly valuable. If one person arrived whenever they wanted, that wasn't necessarily a problem. But if thousands of people had to coordinate markets, religious ceremonies, transportation, trade, construction, and eventually factories, exact timing became powerful. The biggest transformation came much later. The Industrial Revolution. Factories changed not only how humans produced things, but how humans experience time. Before industrialization, many forms of work followed natural rhythms. A farmer could work according to daylight, weather, and seasonal demands. But a factory could operate according to something completely different. The clock. Workers had to arrive at a specific time. Machines had to start at a specific time. Shifts had to end at a specific time. And being late could cost you money. For the first time in human history, enormous numbers of people were being paid according to measured blocks of time. Hours became economic units. A person's time could be calculated. 8 hours. 10 hours. 12 hours. And eventually, a phrase became incredibly important. Time is money. That idea transformed the world. But here's the part that matters most. The clock didn't stay inside the factory. It followed people home. Once society became organized around schedules, people began planning nearly everything around exact times. School starts at 8. Work starts at 9. Lunch happens at noon. Dinner happens at 7. The train leaves at 7:42. Your appointment is at 3:30. Your phone reminds you that you have somewhere to be. And now, even when you're not working, you may still feel like you're behind. This is what makes modern time pressure so strange. We have more technology designed to save time than any humans before us. But we also have more ways to fill that time. And more ways to be interrupted. Think about washing clothes. For most of human history, washing clothes was physically demanding. Today, you can put clothes into a machine, press a button, and walk away. Cooking can be automated. Communication takes seconds. Transportation can move us across entire continents. Information that once required months of travel can be accessed instantly. From a technological perspective, we have compressed enormous amounts of work into tiny amounts of time. But instead of stopping, we often use the extra time to do more. If email becomes faster, we send more emails. If communication becomes instant, people expect instant responses. If transportation becomes faster, we travel farther. If computers make work more efficient, companies can expect more work. If your phone gives you unlimited entertainment, you can fill every empty moment. The problem isn't simply that modern humans have too little time. It's that almost every empty moment can now be filled. Silence. Not complete silence. Nature is rarely silent. There were birds, wind, rain, animals, people talking around fires. But there was less digital noise. Imagine sitting beside a fire 20,000 years ago. Nobody is scrolling. Nobody is checking messages. Nobody is watching a short video every 30 seconds. Nobody is receiving a work notification. You are simply there, talking, eating, repairing something, watching the fire, looking at the sky. That doesn't mean ancient people were happier. They had enormous difficulties that we should never romanticize. But their attention wasn't being competed for by thousands of digital signals. Today, your attention is incredibly valuable. Companies want it. Apps want it. Advertisers want it. News organizations want it. Social media wants it. Even your own brain wants constant stimulation. And that creates a strange modern experience. You can have free time and still feel like you don't have any. But there's another side to the story. We shouldn't imagine ancient humans sitting around all day. Imagine instead that you are living thousands of years ago. You wake up. You don't have a refrigerator. You don't have a supermarket. You don't have a tap supplying clean water. You don't have antibiotics. You don't have a modern hospital. If someone gets seriously injured, there may be nothing anyone can do. If food disappears from the landscape, you can't order a delivery. If the weather becomes extreme, you can't simply turn on the heating. Your ancestors had fewer scheduled obligations, but they had more direct survival problems. Their time wasn't necessarily easier. It was simply organized differently. And that's the key distinction. Less clock pressure does not mean less difficulty. So why do modern humans constantly feel like they're running out of time? Part of the answer is that our world gives us more possibilities than ever before. You can learn almost anything, talk to almost anyone, travel almost anywhere, watch almost anything, work from almost anywhere, build a business, study a new subject, exercise, create videos, play games, listen to music, read thousands of books. The number of possible things you can do is enormous. And that creates a new problem: choice overload. There are always more things you could be doing. So even when you're resting, part of your brain may be thinking, I should be doing something else. Your ancestors didn't have this particular problem at the same scale. There weren't thousands of possible careers. There weren't millions of videos waiting to be watched. There wasn't an endless list of notifications demanding attention. Their world was smaller. Our world is enormous. And an enormous world can make time feel surprisingly small. Here's the irony. Humans have become incredibly good at saving time. But we haven't necessarily become good at experiencing it. We created clocks to measure time, factories to make work faster, machines to reduce effort, computers to process information, smartphones to communicate instantly, and now artificial intelligence can perform tasks that once required entire teams of people. We have compressed more activity into every hour than any previous generation could have imagined. But perhaps the goal of technology was never supposed to be, how much more can we fit into our lives? Maybe the better question is, what should we do with the time we save? Your ancestors probably didn't have more hours in the day. They had the exact same 24 hours. The difference was how those hours were structured. They didn't live with the same constant pressure to optimize every minute. They didn't have thousands of digital distractions competing for their attention. They didn't constantly compare their lives with millions of other people. Their lives were harder in many ways, but their relationship with time was different. And maybe that's the lesson we can take from them. Not that we should abandon technology. Not that we should return to hunting and gathering. And definitely not that ancient life was better. Instead, we could learn to occasionally stop measuring everything, to leave some moments unproductive, to sit without checking the phone, to walk without rushing, to talk without looking at the clock, to let an hour exist without demanding that it accomplish something. Because your ancestors didn't have more time than you. They simply had fewer ways to spend it before they even noticed it was gone. And perhaps that's the strangest thing about modern life. We spent thousands of years inventing machines to give ourselves more time, only to build a world where we never seem to have enough of it. So the next time you look at the clock and think, I don't have enough time, remember, you have the same 24 hours that every human being who ever lived had. The question isn't how much time you have. It's who gets to decide what you do with it.